They changed the bells today. Soft, it was only a little notice on the board new bell schedule, but somehow the bell sounded different, and the courtyard felt different for the first bell after that. Kids shuffled and laughed and teachers set their watches by a new rhythm. I read the paper and felt my chest tighten, like the day had folded a corner in it and I couldn't smooth it out. Tippie sat by my feet, head tilted, as if he knew the day had been rearranged without asking me. Small things were still small then, but small things can tilt you if you stand on the wrong edge. The first thing that changed was how quick the start felt. The teacher started before I grabbed my pencil. A paper slipped from my stack and landed beneath the desk. Someone laughed at a joke I didn't hear because the bell had already stopped ringing. My lunch sat where I left it. My line in the project, the line I'd been practicing in my head, it disappeared like a step in the staircase. I reached for my bag one breath too late. Little things, a pencil, a hello became reminders that I was behind myself. Tippie nudged my ankle and I nodded like a robot who'd forgotten the name of the person he was supposed to be. The day started to feel jagged. Minutes jumped on my watch like little frogs. Snap, snap, snap. My snack got left on a bench. A timetable folded, then ripped, fluttered away. The teacher's eyes passed over me like a barcode scanner. Present, present. Not quite present. Every small slip felt like evidence that something about me was wrong with the way the world expected me to move. I felt a hot, fizzing panic in my throat, not loud, not dramatic. It was the tiny kind that makes your hands go clammy and your breath too short for a single long sentence. Tippie watched from my knees as if he could keep the world from losing its pages. In the halls, time turned into a river that started to pull faster. Kids blurred past with their backpacks like leaves in a stream. The digital clock sputtered ahead, like someone was fast-forwarding a film. I squeezed through a crowd, clutching my satchel like it might unspool me if I let go. Tippie almost got trampled. My heart hopped into my throat. I tried to match the beat. I tried to jog and smile and raise a hand on cue, and each attempt felt a little too loud in my ears. It was like walking across a floor that was slowly shifting under you and pretending the tiles would hold. At the end of the day, I sat on the curb with my book closed in my lap. The city breathed out around me in a way I didn't have the energy to match. My breath felt too fast for my body. Tippie leaned into my hand and nudged like he'd done 1,000 times, patient as a steady clock. The street light above me seemed to wobble for a second, like the world had tilted just enough for me to see the seam. I needed a moment that wasn't scheduled, a moment that wasn't counting me down to something else. Exhale. Sometimes you don't realize how much you need a pause until you don't have one. And then the ordinary changed. The street light stretched like an accordion into a gleaming brass pole. A soft wind brought tiny motes that smelled faintly of clock oil and old paper. Gears whispered into the skyline, and a delicate carousel unfurled like a band of moons. I blinked and something opened. A ring glowing in the air, a doorway to a place where time made its own rules. Tippie's ears went up. His tail curl was a small question. It didn't feel scary at first. It felt like being invited to a show you didn't know you needed to see. I stepped through the rain. For a breath, the curb and the car horn stayed behind, and we were walking on a great clock face. The gears moved like quiet dancers. Above us, rings floated like lanterns, each with its own tiny picture inside. It was a world built from all the times I had thought too fast and all the pauses I'd never learned to take. Tippie padded after me, solid and brave in a small dog way. The air tasted like possibility and old stories. Inside, time had its own rules and they weren't the same as the ones that worried me. The rings showed me faces, not all of them mine. Some were sharp and jagged, like reflections in broken glass. One showed a missed goodbye, another the smear of a dropped drawing. When I reached for them, the edges cut like cold light. The carousel made a sound like a throat clearing, and the air tightened. I could feel a tiny voice in the gears whispering the things I always worried. Too slow, not enough, missed again. Tippie paced and pawed, anxious beside me. In that darker corner, each ring felt like a trap disguised as memory. Some rings were warm and silly sketches of pancakes and secret tickles, tiny scenes that looked like storybook spreads. The pictures inside them moved like watercolor, soft and funny and just a little bigger than real life. Tippie lifted a paw at a vignette of spilled syrup. I had to giggle despite myself. Those rings felt friendly, like invitations to stay a moment and laugh. And for a second, I forgot the clocks and remembered that some memories are soft places you can rest on. And there were rings that simply showed ordinary tenderness, a finished drawing, a friend saying hello, a small kindness repeated. They glowed softly and asked nothing dramatic. Just remember, when I reached toward one of those, my hand didn't shake so much. Tippie leaned his head against my knee and everything else is spinning. The noise softened like a picture coming into focus. Sometimes the bravest thing is choosing the simple light. I hopped on a ring that promised a laugh I remembered well. The time I tumbled and my friend caught me. The perfect hug that smelled like blueberry jam. For the length of a breath, it felt like flying warm and light and full of a silly kind of joy. But just when I thought I could stay, the ring picked up speed. The laugh curled too fast. The hug blurred. Joy that comes without your permission can feel a little like a stolen puppet show, pretty, but not yours to slow or keep. I smiled, and then I winced, and the ring pulled me toward the next flash. The carousel lunged and I saw the prize. I flicked past a goodbye I hadn't finished, a homework page that stayed unfinished, a teacher's hand that left the room. Timestamps blinked like cold little lights. 10:05, 10:30, 10:45. I realized the ring wasn't giving me moments to live, it was borrowing them and returning them faster than I could hold. My chest tightened. Tiny losses are still losses. They are the stitches that hold a day together. Tippie barked and barked, but the sound felt thin and far away, like someone had turned the volume down on the world. I couldn't slow it. I held on as the ring whipped, and I felt my stomach lurch like a roller coaster that had forgotten where the brakes should be. Tears prickled at my eyes because I was scared not of falling, but of losing the small ordinary things that make me feel like me. The clock below blurred into a wheel of washed colors. The noise pushed at the edges of my mind until everything felt too bright and too fast. In the corner of my chest, I whispered that I didn't want it to be this way. Tippie hopped up beside me and nudged my hand. He pressed his nose like a small compass against my palm. I steadied. It was almost nothing, but he looked at me and whispered, "Pause," and when a dog tells you to pause, you feel like the world might listen. The letters of that tiny whisper seemed to hang in the air as golden notes paused. It landed on my skin like a bell. I tried it. I breathed in, slow. The carousel shivered, like something hearing a long-forgotten name. I put my hand on my chest, where a little steady thing beat. My breath. It was small and ordinary and completely mine. I counted 1, 2 and matched the inhale to the tick in my head. The warm metronome glow pulsed from my chest and reached out like a tiny lighthouse. With each slow breath, the gears lost a notch of speed. The carousel answered me back. It felt almost silly to trust such a tiny thing, but the world is weirdly respectful of small steady things. Tippie sat still and the spinning softened. As my breath found a pace, the carousel learned a new rhythm, not the frantic pace the bells had made, but mine. I rode a ring that moved like a gentle swing. The clinks of the gears became friendly, like a clock that hums in tune with you. I could stay in a vignette as long as I wanted, finish small things, laugh, or fold up a page neatly and tuck it away. The world didn't have to yank me into the next moment. For the first time that day, I felt that choosing my speed was an answer I was allowed to give. A strange and simple lesson lived there in the middle of the gears. I could step on and step off. I could take part where it mattered and pass where it didn't. I hopped off a ring to finish a small thing to say thank you to someone who missed hearing it, and then stepped back on again knowing the carousel would wait. Choosing doesn't mean controlling everything. It means deciding, with a small brave breath, where your attention goes. Tippie bumped my knee as if to say, "Good choice," and I felt the rightness of that bump in my ribs. I let go of one heavy ring of worry that had been sitting on my shoulder for days. It dissolved into warm motes like dandelion seeds and drifted away. The weight left my shoulders and the air around me felt brighter. Not everything needed rescuing. Some things needed release. You don't have to carry every worry so it becomes a backpack that never lightens. Tippie barked once in approving, small bark, and I laughed, the sound floating into the calm. The way back to the curb was quiet. The brass post shrank and the carousel settled like a spinning top at the end of its song. The street light became a street light again and the city returned its ordinary colors. But I was not the same little person who walked, and I carried a little clock under my ribs. The metronome glow, a secret I could check with a hand. Tippie's stride matched mine. We walked slower on purpose, and all the small things looked softer because I remembered how to breathe. The next morning, the bells still rang on their new schedule, but I moved to my own beat. I paused between actions, breathed with intention, raised my hand when I meant to, and packed my lunch without a panic. When the class lined up for the photo, I breathed in 1, 2, and let the smile that was actually mine come into my face. The camera clicked and the picture held the person I chose to be. Life will rearrange its clocks sometimes. People will ask us to hurry, but you can keep a small clock inside your chest, a breath you trust. Pause, breathe, move. If you liked going along with Camellie and Tippie, like and subscribe to follow their next small adventure. And if you're carrying a fast day right now, try one long, quiet breath. It might be the thing that slows a carousel. For a long time, I learned to disappear, to hold my words like little stones in my hands. But today, the room held me back. I breathed. I blinked. I chose to be here. And when the shutter closed, I was in the picture I chose. Tippie peeked at my shoes, like he always does, and somehow, that was enough. Small test. Big proof. Some things don't change overnight. They change one small step at a time. Anchor yourself with your own steady rhythm. Find the pulse that keeps you here. When everything rushes, your breath is an honest clock. When doubts hurry, your breath is patient. Even when life speeds up, your breath is your clock. Pause, breathe, move. If this helped you find one small steady step, subscribe and walk with us. See you in the next story.